Hey guys, what's up? Spectre here. I've been playing lots of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, enough to have some initial thoughts and impressions, as well as some vital information on the moment-to-moment gameplay, combat, and more. Let's jump in. I'll begin with a general overview of my experience thus far, and then get into more specific questions that some of you have asked me under my recent community post. Be sure to get subscribed and look out for those posts if you haven't. In Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, you play Cal Kestis, working on a backwater planet, doing the menial and sometimes extremely dangerous work of chopping up ships and scrapping them for the Empire. You're a former Jedi Padawan who somehow managed to survive the Purge, and after being discovered by the Empire, you're pulled into a clandestine operation aimed at reviving the Jedi Order. Along the way, you must walk the path of a revered Jedi Master and unlock the tools that you'll need to bring back the Jedi. What I first noticed about the game is Respawn's masterful use of scale. Climbing through these massive ships, often as they're being chopped apart, is a visual treat that reminds me of the opening scenes in Star Wars films, with ships eclipsing the audience. Respawn knows how to make the player feel tiny and does so in breathtaking ways. Cutscenes are well written, and even small quips are entertaining. Not a single word is wasted, and there's a consistent tone that features dark humor, endearingly corny humor in that familiar Star Wars vein, but also some real pain from Cal and the others that you'll meet, having survived the Jedi Purge. My first gripe, however, does have something to do with my early experience and my interaction with NPCs. Some cutscenes are absolutely gorgeous, in fact, most of them are. Most moments of the game are beautifully rendered. However, in the opening hours of the game, I noticed a hefty amount of texture popping and just a general stuttering of certain assets, a choppiness about the whole experience. It's almost as if the game is struggling to keep itself together. Now, before that's taken out of proportion, it's not terrible. It doesn't hamper my overall experience, it's just something that I want to point out because I'm going to draw comparisons to games like God of War. But this title is just a little less polished than that. It's not overwhelming, it's more noticeable during the game's quieter, slower moments, or in some cutscenes. In moment-to-moment gameplay, you'll be fine. It's also worth noting that early patches may address all of this. The in-game worlds are varied, with those signature Star Wars flourishes. I landed on my first planet, only to hear those little musical notes from the films, like when you first see Dagobah, with light fog and swampy areas around me and little aliens poking out of the ground to sneak peeks at me. This game captures that feeling of Star Wars better than some films like The Force Awakens. It's in these moments where I'm overjoyed that this game exists. The worlds aren't as open as in KOTOR, but not as closed off as in The Force Unleashed. They're semi-open in the vein of God of War or the newer Tomb Raider games. Areas are divided into regions and you're free to roam around, and exploration is encouraged and rewarded with skins for yourself, BD-1, your ship, and even new lightsaber parts. Yes, you can build your very own custom lightsaber, even changing the crystal color, and it's my absolute favorite part of the game. There are Metroidvania aspects to this game too, as you'll need to backtrack and revisit areas when you have new powers to fully unlock certain puzzles or doors. I've unlocked 4 different planets in the opening of the game alone, and each is different in landscape, fauna, and challenges. Fighting is smooth and satisfying, although don't expect to just run in saber swinging like in The Force Unleashed. You'll have to learn to block and parry at the right times. I've gone into a few fights with that all-offensive approach, and while it might work on minor enemies and troopers, higher-level enemies and even Sith will absolutely destroy you unless you keep your guard up. Dying is another interesting part of the game, as you'll be sent back to the meditation area that you visited most recently. In a similar system to bonfires in Dark Souls, you'll stop at these areas as you discover them and spend skill points and even rest. Resting will replenish your health, force, and even refill your health stims. However, resting will also resurrect all the enemies in the immediate area. While this system is frustrating when you die and have to backtrack, just know that your progress isn't reset, meaning that if you accomplish the quest objective, you're just being transported back to another area. You won't actually have to redo anything that happened just before your death. This mechanic also creates tense moments where you're low on health and surrounded by enemies, just hoping that there's another meditation area around the corner. I mentioned that platforming briefly earlier, but it really is great. Think Uncharted, but in space. You'll be scaling massive structures while dodging enemy fire in grand action-packed set pieces. There's climbing and jumping from ledges, your usual gaming fare, but there's also moments that'll have you sliding down icy slopes while blocking blaster fire with your saber. It's great. I'm enjoying myself, but will you? For those of you looking for an open-ended, replayable story, this might not be it. The worlds may be somewhat open, but the narrative is not. You are playing the story of Jedi Cal Kestis. It's tightly focused, and it's a great story to be fair. But similar to God of War, the only choice that I've made so far is the order in which I'd like to accomplish my objectives and which planet I want to visit next. I can't speak to the story's length, but thus far they've mentioned various planets, and it seems that if you're a completionist, you can spend quite a bit of time on each one. As far as replayability, I don't see much story branching here. It seems to be a single, focused narrative, so I don't think it'll be super replayable, but more impactful twists may come later. The skill tree is somewhat rudimentary in the first few levels, but everything is useful. This game really demands that you use your full arsenal of abilities to survive. I like what I'm seeing so far. For those of you who wanted a singular, focused story, this is it. I almost can't believe that we're getting to play it before EA cancels it or something. It's a fresh Star Wars adventure that hits all the right cues from its predecessors. If you expected a real single-player adventure, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Stay tuned for my full review and get subbed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on it. And as always, thanks for watching, guys.